guys, welcome back to Cannock Carpers. I'm Celine, this is Adam, and we're going to be doing episode 2 of Catch More Carp. Today we're going to be talking about rig presentation. It's crucial to get your presentation right when you're fishing for carp, especially if you want to catch more and you want to present the best for the best kind of circumstances that you're going to be fishing.
So in this video we're going to be hitting multiple venues. At the moment we're at Milking Brook, but we will also be hitting Bishtons, which they have several lakes on their complex. There will be different bottoms to fish, there'll be gravel, silt, a bit of chod. So we'll give you a variety of different techniques and ways to fish in those situations. Here we go, my first fish of the session. I had him on 12mm citrus with a little boot berry wafter on top.
Nice smashed up scaly common, £8, first fish on this water. Well, first fish this year on this water. Hopefully the start of a lot more to come.
My first ever blue shisui, not the biggest in the world, but definitely one of the prettiest I've ever seen in my life. Waiting to take a photo of the one that's flapping around below me. This one, take a biscuit off the surface. It's too long in the net. This one's worthy of going in the run's water, and I think he'll make a nice bright chunk when he's older. Took a little dog biscuit off the surface, and here we are. Fishing in a load of snags on the other side of the bank, and a little wafter with a bit of braid on a solid bag, because there's a lot of silt and a lot of leaves down there. Ronnie screamed off, and yeah, here we go. Off the surface, even though it's really cold, but it just goes to show if they're not biting on the bottom, you need to go and find them. Lucy had this one last week, but I'm glad to say I've had it this week. 10 pound 12 ounces, again on a wafter with a PVA bag in a load of snags on the bottom under the leaf litter. Perfect way to start a good night's sleep home. £13 6 ounce. wafter. Try and catch a bream on that one, to be honest. Same method, I think it's more like under the So bad presentation leads to numerous kinds of problems, including carp struggling to inhale food, get hooked by the hook, and even finding the bait in general on the bottom. Bad presentations caused by damaged rigs, incorrectly prepared rigs, poor rig choice for the situation, or even just the wrong bait choice for the style of rig that you're choosing in that situation that you're going to be fishing in. So let's get on to looking at how some rigs present in the water. We'll start with a hair rig and a bottom bait. I have got a little rig ring on there just to hold it in place, but the same principle applies, and when you drop it in it will sit nicely on the bottom, but obviously that's on a hard bottom. So if we was to say there's some silt and leaf litter or weed and it's a couple of inches thick and it's just covering the bottom, it'd be around about there. So what you're going to see when you're using a bottom bait is the bottom bait's going to sink straight through all that debris, and potentially that hook point is literally just going to get caught on any kind of debris as it pushes through it. So it's best to use it in a clearer situation, although you can still catch using bottom baits in leafy, silty, weedy areas, but it's best to confine all your freebie bait onto one small little patch so it makes your hook bait a lot more available. So this one's a multi-rig. It has got a small pop-up on which is counterbalanced by the bait screw, so it's practically a wafting rig. We'll drop it in and see how slow it takes to sink. Now that dropped in a lot slower, so all this debris here it would in a sense sit on top of because it isn't heavy enough to sink through them, but obviously with the way I've got this set up at the moment, that is slightly too buoyant because it's going to be digging the hook into the bottom of the lake. Whereas if I was to take off some of the pop-up, it will sit like a nice little wafting rig. So obviously if I was to change that pop-up for a wafter, it'd sit like that naturally without me having to take anything off it. This is perfect to blend in with the freebies, but it's also light enough just to give you that little bit of advantage over debris on the bottom, especially if you're using it with braid or something like that, because that settles quite nicely over snags. But obviously fish can still waft debris over the top, so that is something to be wary of. This is a slip D. Again, this is a wafter counterbalanced by the bait screw, and this will again sit just like the multi-rig over the top of the debris, sinks in nice and slowly, and that will literally just sit over the top of any debris there, and it will act like a freebie and lift up into the carp's mouth very easily. This one is just a stiff hinge pop-up rig. It acts like a running rig, to be honest, but I don't actually like using running rigs, so I tend to go for this sort of style instead. As you can see, that will just literally sit above the debris. This one's a chod rig. It's just on a linker boom. You can fish them mainly on a helicopter rig, which is what most people tend to fish it like. But again, that will sit above the debris. These rigs in here at the moment are all presenting quite correctly, but as I said when we looked at this one, if it's not quite counterbalanced right, it will turn the hook into the debris on the bottom. Again, if you put a pop-up on that is too buoyant, it'll stand up somewhat like a chod, but it won't have the same mechanics as a chod rig, so it won't hook into the fish as well as you'd expect.
and if you're not aware that it's popped up off the bottom and you're not intending on that and you're fishing with a lot of bottom baits, that can be quite detrimental to the session that you're having. My preference personally, I go for the wafting rigs, just because they look more like a natural freebie and they just lift up into the mouth easier, and when there is a lot of leaf litter, I prefer to fish on top of it, whereas other people would straight up put a chod or a pop-up rig on just to be above that. But it's down to your preference really and what you're most confident in doing. If it's nice and clear, I'll put a boom wafting rig on. If it's very snaggy, I'll stick to braid, because if boom sits over a snag, it'll sit pointed up like that, and sometimes it can just have your rig wafting round in a very weird position, and it's very scary to the fish. With these presentations, because the hook is exposed above the debris can easily get caught on it, so sometimes if you have a bad feeling, just listen to your bad feeling and re-spot your rod, but don't go OTT. All of these rigs here are pretty much perfectly fine to be used with a lead clip, but they can also be used on helicopter rigs, because I have used them in the past on heli rigs, especially the boom ones, because they will sit right above the weed regardless how deep it is, as long as you set your beads correctly. Another reason why we use boom is because you literally can't see that. There's a whole hook in there and you can't see it at all. I do like to use a braid that's going to blend in with the bottom that I'm fishing on as well, because that's quite important. I do believe that they will feel or see these lines, especially main line that's tightened to the rod tip. Check your rigs like this in containers of water or in the margin. Just make sure they're sitting how you're expecting them to sit.
Another advantage you can have is use PVA foam or PVA bags. They also protect your hook point on the drop, so nothing will get caught on the way down. So it's good if you're fishing in weeds. It'll just knock all the weeds out the way and it'll get to the bottom, and then the carp will come in and find it within all the weeds. So if you're not confident, keep trying until you are confident, because you will get there. We all do, we all start from nothing. Another thing that's just as important as presenting your hook bait is the quality of the bait that you're chucking in to attract the fish as well. Check that out in the previous video, I will put a link to that in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. Keep trying. I know it's winter, I know it's getting hard now, but remember, less bait is more in a sense. Keep it little and often. PVA bag. £9.12 off the little pool keeps causing absolute carnage for the match anglers because he keeps snapping everybody off. But now he's going to live in the Brums water because he's beautiful and he's worthy of it. Here's another one. It's not a massive one again, but that's not what catching more carp is about. They're not always massive, but sometimes they are much worth catching. Just look at the colours on that. To catch more koi like this, get yourself down to Bishton's on the first pour. You might need to stalk them, but you will get them all on the bottom as well. Just check out the lovely colours on that. Remember, every time that you see a carp bleeding or you've injured them or there's any sort of injury, put carp care kit on them and look after the fish that we all love to catch.